Well, it's early spring, and for me that means pellet fishing. And catching on a short pole at a nice open water venue like this at Manor Farm Leisure where we are today is absolutely ideal. But there's always a dilemma because it's early spring. Do I fish soft pellet or do I fish hard pellet? And I've come with both, and I'm going to show you the pros and cons of both styles of fishing. So we're going to start off on soft pellet, some softened 4s and expanders, and hopefully we'll be able to swap to hard 4s and hard 6mm pellets as well in a band and start bagging up really well later on in the session. That's how I predict things to go, but these sessions are always different. You never know how it's going to fish, but my initial thoughts are start on soft pellet, nice and safe way of catching everything that swims, and then really start to sack up on the hard pellets. So let's see how we get on. Well, it's spring now and the silverfish should be really active. So I tend to cut out the micro pellets in deep water. Anything over 3 foot, I try and cut out the micro pellets. But old habits die hard, I've still done some up just in case. I might sometimes kickstart the swim with a few micro pellets, but in my experience, if you start feeding micro pellets in more than 3 foot of water, then you could have problems with foul looking fish and getting the wrong sort of fish in the peg. And also, I don't really want the fish being preoccupied with micro pellets. I want them to be eating something a bit bigger and a bit closer to my hook bait. So hopefully 4mm pellets is what I'll just be feeding. And if it's really, really good, I'll be feeding 6mm pellets. But I'm expecting, because it's early spring, I think 4mm pellets will be the way forward. We can always try introducing some 6mm later. Now all I've got is a normal 4mm Thin Perfect hard 4mm. And these soak up really nice. So I've actually soaked some up just to soften them up. They're not soaked all the way through, they're not mushy. All I've done, I'll just show you. I literally tip a load of water on, swirl it all up, give it 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then literally, you don't need a strain or anything. Just drain it all off through your hand. And literally, that's all it does. It just takes the edge off them. And within 15, 20 minutes, they'll have soaked all that extra water up and they'll just be nice and sort of more palatable. So, which is really good for, there's a lot of stocky F1s in here, but some really big F1s, there's carp, there's skimmers. So just taking the edge off these hard 4mm pellets just makes them a bit more palatable for everything that swims. And at the start, I want to catch everything. And for hook baits, I've got 2 little pots here, should cover all my needs. To start with, I've got 4 and 6mm Pro expanders. I mix the 2 up, straight out of the bag, put them in the night before, cover them with water, a little bit of a washed out bait booster or something like that if you fancy. And like I say, cover them with water, put them in the fridge, and they're perfect in the morning. No need to pump them or anything like that. They're just nice and perfect for hooking. I always bring 4mm and 6mm on a venue like this. Probably start on a 4mm, but don't ignore 6mm pellets. They're much bigger than a 6mm when they're soaked up, but they can be a really nice selective bait, especially for big F1s and bigger carp. So they're my starting hook bait. And I've also got some hard pellets as well, which I can put on a band. I've got 4mm, 6mm, but I've also found a batch of what I class as big 4mm. So they're like a 5mm, somewhere in between the two. So if I show you my 4 and 6mm there, there's quite a big gap between the two, but I found a little batch of 4mm that are like a 5mm. So it's worth doing that. If you find a batch of pellets that are a slightly different size, slightly bigger than your feed pellets, then they're often worth a stab as well. But also you can always just make sure and just have a look and try and find a slightly smaller pellet in your tub or a slightly bigger pellet in your tub. But I've done all the hard work. I've just found a nice batch of 4, 5 and 6mm hard pellets as well. So that's the other option as well. Well, pellets are really filling, and I don't think you want to fill it in at the start. So I'll always have my big pot set up, and I can always attack it if I need to. So that's always on standby. but generally I'm going to start and finish by feeding with a medium flexi toss pot. Now for soft pellets, I can just wedge them in nicely as it comes like that. And if I need to start sprinkling, then I put the extender on, usually with a single hole at this sort of range, because it just evacuates a bit faster than with the 3-hole lid, the sprinkle lid as I call it. So we might put that on, but generally to begin with, we'll just feed with a little, well, a medium flexi toss pot. The wind's just dropped a bit now, so I might be able to throw. I've got my catapult on standby as well, so I don't mind. It's a good skill to learn to catapult short as well, rather than overexert and spreading it all over the place by throwing. So, but we're going to start potting, see how it goes. We might start and finish with potting, but we might throw, we might catapult, we might have to resort to the big pot. But if in doubt, always start nice and conservatively with a medium flexi toss pot. Well, I've plumbed up 2 short pole swims, left and right, and I always like to fish to one side. That way I'm not dragging fish through. I'd rather play the fish here in front of me. So I tend to go to the left or the right rather than straight in front. But every peg's different. The peg dictates where you fish sometimes, but I've got a nice luxury being able to fish left and right, and I can fire up the right hand swim if I need to. But I'm just going to fish one swim from the off. I've not fed anything yet. This is my very, very first drop. I'm going to start off on a 4mm expander. Just going to roll it on a size 16 MXC1 hook. And then I'm just going to put a few micro pellets in. And then some softened 4mm, like I said before. Cap them off to the top. And that's more than enough to kickstart the peg. I've got the wind in my face a little bit, so that's why I've got quite a short line above my float, because everything's going to be blowing in towards me. So the main thing today, I'm forgetting about my rig at the moment, I'm just going to feed. So I've lined up with a little milk bottle there. There's a little floating rope thing that they have here. Probably press them in a bit too much. There we are. So they've gone down in quite a nice heavy sort of plug straight down. And then I'm going to flick the rig out against the wind and then bring the rig in, because it's always going to be blowing towards me with the wind being like it is. Generally with pellets, I find it's quite an instant bait. That's why I haven't fed a thing at the moment. I've gone fed and I've gone straight on it. I would like to get, I'm hoping there's some resident fish here from the off, and I'd like to get a bite, well, within 2 or 3 minutes. I generally think with pellets it's easy to catch straight away on pellets, so that's what I'm hoping. They can be a little bit chaotic for the first few minutes before they settle down. You know, that was a bite. But just a gentle lift. We've got a very short line between the float and the pole tip anyway, so just a lift. If you strike too hard, that expander will be off anyway. But we've had a bite already. Obviously what we're always after is the bigger fish, the bigger quality fish. And in this venue there's F1s, anything up to sort of, I think 9-pound F1s in here. There's some monstrous fish. Just missed a little indication then. Another one there. There we are. First fish. It was a bit, I don't know if it's a little stocky or a skewer. A little stocky. And that's another reason for starting on soft pellet, because you will catch these sort of fish early. A little bit harder to catch on hard pellet at this time of year. Let's do that again then. So once you catch a few stockies, you know they very rarely by themselves. There you are. Worked, didn't it? Not sure what we got here. skimmer. So these are really worth catching, especially early spring. Some venues half your weight will be made up of little chunky silverfish and stockies. So I'm more than happy to be catching those, and that's a good reason for starting on that 10 to 12 slick, because it'll deal with those skimmers nicely, but also it's strong enough to catch the carp. The wind's really picking up now, but I'm starting to loose feed now. Feels a bit better. I've pushed the bulk up a little bit, so I've got a bulk and 2 droppers now. I've definitely been having some bites on the settle, and some little skimmers and that on the way down as well. So there's definitely a few males about. So already I think they want a bit of bait to keep them down, and also make sure there's enough bait there. Oh, I don't know how I missed that one. But yeah, probably 24 mils, still the softened ones, sort of on the float and short, but definitely getting a better response from being a little bit more aggressive. It's all pointing towards hard pellets probably being good, but I'm still getting bites doing this, so I don't see any reason to change. But we might start introducing a few hard pellets, just start weaning them onto harder baits, because it's nice to be able to loose feed rather than rely on that pot. So we're definitely getting a few. The thing is though, I don't want to get too giddy, because they can sometimes go a little bit scatty if you keep loose feeding. So we might end up having to tighten it back up with a pot. But definitely being a little bit more aggressive. It's nice coming out of winter and being able to feed a little bit of bait. So everything's pointing towards these fish wanting a little bit of pudding. But I'd say it's been a 50-50 response between 4mm and 6mm expanders as well. They've both been pretty good. Just got to make sure I've got to push that rig right out so it arcs in towards me. Oh, I fed a little bit too far then. So we'll try a double pouch now. A quick burst of 2 lots of feed. We're trying to keep these fish on the bottom. We're not trying to catch shallow, we're trying to keep the fish on the bottom. If you feed not enough, sometimes they start coming up, so we're trying to force them down, but we don't want so much bait there that we start foul looking fish. So it's always a little fine balancing act. Definitely getting more bites now we're starting to loose feed. Straight away again. Feel like I'm making things happen now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to feed that now so it's primed for the next fish. There's mostly stockies, but I think they've been quite aggressive, sort of charging into the peg and then disappearing pretty quick. So swapping to, I pushed the rig up a little bit just to slow down the fall of the hook bait, because they're definitely watching it fall. The bites are coming pretty quick after feeding, so I think they're sort of following it down. And loose feeding definitely seems better than potting, just being a little bit more aggressive, a little burst of feed, slightly bigger area of bait, sort of dustbin lid size area of bait. So I'm going to prime that pouch ready, probably about 24mm pellets. I've just gone bang bang bang, a nice little run of fish, and that's generally what happens with F1s anyway. You get a little run of fish, then something happens. There we are. See, that's out the swim, so I'll just feed. You get a little run of fish, and then you think you've got it all sussed, and then you've got to work at it again. But he's all right if you can catch them quick. A nice chunky fish. So yeah, we've had a little nice run of these fish. 4mm expander. 6mm was definitely best early doors, maybe because it was a bit more of a target bait. So we're not potting anything at the moment now, we're just relying on the loose feed, but being quite aggressive. Now I fed straight after hooking that fish, so hopefully they're down on that bit of feed already. But if not, we've got the pouch already loaded. But they seem to have settled down a little bit now. Just about trying to keep them down on the bottom. And you'll get little runs of fish. We've probably had 4 on the bounce now. And when they're there, it's effortless. But sometimes you'll just get a few little moments where they're a little bit unsettled, or there might be something else in the peg, or skimmers, or... Ooh, we missed that one. I think that's probably nicked my expander, that one. No. But yeah, it's a nice little run of fish now. We've had a few bigger ones amongst them, but not as many as I would have liked. But sometimes those smaller F1s, they're the hungrier fish, so they'll almost bully the bigger fish out the way. You'd think it's the other way around, but I'm sure numbers of smaller fish sort of bothers the bigger fish, and they sort of hang around in the periphery really. So you just got to make do with what's there, and you've got to just get those smaller fish out of the peg to get through to the bigger ones sometimes. But yeah, it feels like we're quite happy with how it's going now. Very iffy sort of start, very slow start, but very cold morning, loads of overnight rain. It's the most full I've seen this lake actually. So but yeah, so the fish were a little bit reluctant early doors, but they're feeding now. And I definitely think they do want some bait. I'm getting quite a bit of activity there now. See, that's a little lift. I don't think that was a bite. Something just dislodged my bulk, I think. And they just seem to be a little bit hungrier now. So I'm hoping I can sort of wean them onto hard pellets. And if I can fish a hard banded pellet, then it should be quicker, because we can just lift and drop until one's on. Whoop, where's that one going? But yeah, they're definitely, I mean, we're catching well, but I'm always trying to catch better and bigger. So yeah, I could happily catch these all day and carry on doing what we're doing. But I'm always thinking, are there bigger fish about, and can we be a bit more selective for them? So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start to feed some hard pellets as well. So what I might do, yeah, we'll carry on with a 4mm on the hook for now. I'm just going to put a few hard 6s in and a few hard 4s. And cap it off with the soft, because they're definitely having some bait now. And wean them onto the hard pellet. So I'm not going to feed hard pellets and put a hard pellet on the hook and expect to catch straight away. I'm just going to catch a couple more on a soft pellet. But by then, they'd have had a sniff of these harder pellets. I'll be more easier to catch, I'm hoping. That's the theory anyway. Well, it's an out-and-out short pole session today, and I've set up 2 rigs. The conditions have dictated the float really. To be honest, if I was given a choice, I'd love to fish a carbon stem float today, but the wind and the chop on it dictates a wire stem float. And you tend to find out in these bigger open waters anyway, a wire stem float just offers you a bit more stability. So I've got a 1/2 gram float. It's about 6 foot deep, so I've got a 1/2 gram slim wire float, and that's got a 1.5, maybe a 1.8mm hollow tip. which is ideal for pellets and any sort of bait really at this time of year. That's on either 018 or 020 diameter main line, just nice, strong, robust main line. And then basically in this sort of depth, 5-6 foot of water, a Balkan 1 or a Balkan 2 droppers is all you need really. There's no need for anything fancier. So I've got a 4-inch hook length, and then about 4 inches above that I've got my first dropper shot, which is a number 9. Another 4 inches above that I've got another number 9. Then I've got a bulk of number 8s about the same distance again. So very, very simple Balkan 2 dropper arrangement. If it was really, really good, or there was a lot of nuisance fish about, or if I just need to stabilise the rig a little bit more, I'd bring it down to a Balkan 1 dropper. So I'd bring the bulk down another 4 or 5 inches. And if it was absolutely brilliant, solid with fish, I wouldn't hesitate to have a bulk just above a 4-inch hook length. I've got no problem fishing like that if the peg was absolutely solid with fish. But to be honest, if in doubt, Balkan 2, Balkan 1, you won't go far wrong. So anyway, that's the soft pellet rig. I'm using pre-tied hook lengths today. I'm using a 16 MXC1 to 014, which is ideal for 4mm and 6mm expanders. You can put corn or meat or double maggot or anything on those, but for today, 4mm, 6mm expanders, perfect with a 16. You can bury a 16 inside a 4mm expander easy. And for banded pellet, I'm using an 18 MXC6. Now that's a smaller hook deliberately because you're showing the entire hook. If you go too big on the hook, you're more likely to foul hook fish. So if it was really good and I was just fishing 6mm pellets, then maybe a 16 would be okay. But because I might be putting a 4mm or 5mm or a 6mm hard pellet on, I just find that 18, you don't foul hook so many fish and you just seem to get better bites. And it's purely because the whole hook's on show, whereas with the soft pellet, I can bury a 16 completely inside the hook bait. But because it's all on show, I generally go slightly smaller on the hook unless it's really, really good. So that's what we're using. And as far as elastic goes, I've just got 10 to 12 slick on both top kits. If they really rook up and it's really good fishing, or maybe the last hour when the bigger carp arrive, then I wouldn't hesitate to swap to 12 to 14. I've got 2 empty top kits out as well. Just take the rig off and put it on a different elastic. Don't be scared to spend 30 seconds taking the rig off and putting it on a different elastic. It's nice to have them set up on standby. I don't need to have a second rig set up. I'll just take this rig off and put it on the stronger elastic. But this 10 to 12 is coping with everything we're hooking so far, and I'm more than happy using that for the rest of the session, to be honest. Oh, and the only other thing worth mentioning, I've got a very short lash here. It's probably only 6 inches. You could go longer, but because of the wind in our face and the blow and everything, and I want everything nice and accurate, going shorter just makes sure where I fed my rig is exactly where I want it to be. If that was longer, the float can drift a lot more. I've got 2 number 8 back shot there as well, about halfway, just to help stabilise things as well. So it's all about sort of coping with the conditions really. It's an exposed open water lake today with the wind in our face. So everything's designed to try and keep that hook bait where we want it. Well, this is quite nice now. I've swapped to hard pellets and I'm actually just feeding the 6mm now. For a little while I was feeding 4s and 6s, but because a banded 6mm pellet's been really good, I'm just feeding and fishing 6s. And I think with the wind and weather and everything being like it is today, them being a little bit heavier, a bit denser, they're going down, not getting the small fish trouble, and just fishing nicer on the bottom. I've just pulled my float down another 6 inch and I'm going to replumb probably about 1 metre shorter. So I've been fishing top kitten 3. I'm going to plumb up a top kitten 2 now, just coming a little bit closer towards me. One, the wind's picking up, but also I think there's a lot more fish about, and I just think coming a little bit way up, watch out for the herons, just coming a little bit closer towards me and a little bit less water, it's just going to be quicker, easier to feed by hand, now I've swapped to the hard 6mm pellets, and just better all round. I think just coming that little bit closer. I always think at the start of the session, start a little bit away from yourself, but I've got no problem as it gets good, just come in a section closer. So that's what we're doing. There we go. Just wait for that wind to drop before I throw. There we go. And if this got really good again, I could come a section closer again, you know, top kit and one. But it's nice, there's a nice bit of distance there between me and the fish. This one's a big fish, but not doing anything. Let's try and bring him up at the last minute before he sees my ugly mush. He's going to go on a run, isn't he? You knew he was going to do that, didn't you? Where's he gone? What is going on? He must be in the wing. And that's how you do it. He's £5 though, isn't he? Crikey. You're gonna foul hook a few when they're that big in your peg. Well, this feels like another good F1, and as much as I'm enjoying it and would love to just do this for the next hour or two, the clouds look very, very black in the horizon. And we definitely forecast a big downpour, and I also think we'd probably be fishing down the edge around now, but that's a subject for another video. But it's certainly been interesting starting on them soft pellets and then coming a section shorter and really clattering them on hard 6mm, feeding and fishing 6mm. It's been brilliant. And that's a relatively small one for what we've been having the last few drops. Whoop. Yeah, that's a relatively small one to what we've been having the last few drops. But decent fish to end on. Immaculate fish at this place. If you've not been to Manor Farm Leisure before, you really should give it a go because it's a fantastic venue. Loads of fish like this and lots of proper carp as well. Just a pleasure to fish, really. And as we move later on into the year, as we move towards summer, I think it'll all be hard pellet fishing, but because it's early spring, I definitely think you need to bring some soft pellets with you. Start on soft pellets. It'll be good down the edge as well, soft pellets. But as it gets better and better, and as today's session's got better and better, hard pellets have really proved their merit as well. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Real nice, simple pellet fishing, all on the short pole. Some lovely fish, and just a nice, simple, easy and effective way of fishing.